The other one I want to talk about, and I got to quit, is if we talk about leader follower or first last grazing, you can allocate 2 different animal classes to the forage. Make sure the animals with higher individual requirements get the top third, the top half of the forage first, and then move them ahead and follow behind with an animal class with lower requirements. So, for example, you put, if you happen to, I saw a few hands go up, you have yearlings and cow-calf, put the yearlings through first, stoppers through first, let them get the best of the forage, and then follow with mother cows. In practice, it's hard to do, it's hard to keep them synchronized, they start getting out of phase, but really, really sharp operators have been able to do it. Okay, I got to quit. I was hoping, we'll probably out of time, maybe we could hear from you during breaks. I was hoping to hear from you. Given all this, and the things you've all figured out on your own, I'm always interested in hearing, what is it we struggle with that we don't know enough about, that we would like to know more about? Where are the management decisions faulty? We're expecting a certain result based on advice, based on recommendations, based on fact sheets, but we don't get that result. I'd like to hear more about where are the gaps in our knowledge and our understanding that help us focus as researchers on, okay, what are some of the control points we need to look at and work on. So with that, if there's time for questions, you can chime in or we take a break.
Well, we can start with questions. If you have any questions for Dr. Griggs, just please shout them out. Don't be bashful. Yes.
I guess in going through what you've gone through, one of the things that I think about is, I know in the spring that I'll have moisture.
Yeah.
I know in the summer I'll have a pretty good chance that I'll be dry.
Yeah.
But the point that really gets to be the tough one is a lot of my activity and the decisions I make are based on whether or not I'll get some moisture somewhere in that August through October period.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are the kind of things I need to be thinking about or doing to optimize my chance to make the most of the moisture that'll be there whether it rains or not?
Excellent. Yeah.
Pre-fall period.
Exactly, and that's why I've more and more in the last 3 or 4 years I've been focusing on roots, root depth, root distribution. What are our different grazing practices doing to our root dynamics as we go through the season? Are we pruning back our roots? Are they regrowing? And a lot of that, we're just in the infancy of our knowledge, but if we can maintain vigorous rooting systems that are this deep instead of this deep, now we've got a lot more potential to capture that moisture that might still be down there in July and August that shallow roots are never going to see. So I keep coming back to what do we need to be doing to the top growth, to the canopy, to maximize root depth and root replacement after grazing. Because we know after grazing, we always prune the roots. The roots are shed because there's not enough leaf area to keep them going, and then they regrow. So how do we minimize that root shedding and maximize the root replacement? And I don't have any great wisdom to share with you yet, but that's sort of the focus of what I've been doing the last few years. So if we can maximize rooting, and then if we can, if you go back to that, let me just, if you don't mind, let me go back real briefly. There's something I should have emphasized here. If we look at these forage production data, we didn't talk about coefficient of variation, CV. CV is just standard deviation as a percentage of the average. So what it tells you is basically the variability in yield. So you notice for alfalfa, the variability in yield is 19%. Red clover is 34%. Perennial ryegrass is 39%. So when you look at numbers like that, you can see, as I go from wet to dry, I'm going to have a lot more risk with something like perennial ryegrass than I will with alfalfa. Alfalfa is going to be more stable. It's going to be more consistent year in, year out. So that might help answer your question in terms of, well, let me at least structure my program with species that tend to be stable over the years instead of highly responsive to wet versus dry. So alfalfa almost always comes out a winner in terms of stability over yield. If you have soils, a management program that'll fit alfalfa, that's often a way to address the